Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, Castelia House Publishing. So I warned you about Jordan Peterson. A lot of people were unhappy when I first came out and pointed out that Jordan Peterson is not a good guy. Jordan Peterson is not on our side. That Jordan Peterson is not an enemy of the SJWs, and that he is not someone who is good for the right. Now, the thing is that either you stand for what is right or what you don't. And when Jordan Peterson came out today against Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation, implicitly, and explicitly came out and said that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, which he will be, by the way, in case you haven't heard, 2 of the 4 maybe votes in the Senate have come out openly and confirmed that they are going to support Kavanaugh's confirmation. And more significantly, one of them is actually the West Virginia Democrat. So, for years, Jordan Peterson has said he's terrified of making the mistake that is going to ruin his career. Now, I don't know if this is actually sufficient to sink his career or not, but it should be. Because this makes very clear that Jordan Peterson is in league with the SJWs. Jordan Peterson is, in American terms, a Democrat. And so, there's absolutely no question that the intellectual dark web, the Ben Shapiros, the Eric Weinsteins, the recycled new atheist known as Sam Harris, and Jordan Peterson himself are all on the side of the left. This is not a surprise. I mean, I've been telling you guys this, for ages, it seems. I knew that he was not a good guy, that he was not on our side, that he was part of the problem rather than part of the solution from the time I read his book. And there's so many people who say such incredibly dumb things about Peterson because they happen to like one thing that he said, or they happen to like 2 things that he said. Here's the thing. You can always find something that somebody says that you agree with. That doesn't mean that their objectives are in line with yours. And so, and the more that you look into these people, the more that you read what they've written, the more you confirm that that's the case. The intellectual dark web is the it's the approved opposition. They are the people that the New York Times are willing to have be the official opposition in Harlem Globetrotter terms. They are the Washington Generals who are supposed to come out there and take a fall. A couple of people are asking what Jordan Peterson has said. Now, he recently tweeted that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, he should resign. Now, that's not a joke. I mean, what's amazing to me is how these people try to make excuses for him and try to claim, well, that's not really what he meant. You know, there's no question that Peterson is opposed to Kavanaugh. There's no question that Peterson doesn't want Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court because he supports all the leftist stuff that the Supreme Court has been doing in the past 40 years. And so you need to understand that you were misled. You need to understand that people like Ben Shapiro, people like Jordan Peterson, they are worm tongues. They are Fabian worm tongues. If you don't understand the reference, it's a reference to Fabian socialism, which is itself derived from Fabian the Delayer, Fabius Maximus, the general, the Roman general, who managed to defeat Hannibal by refusing to meet him in battle. He just wore him down over time. And so, you know, when you look at all the right-wingers who have devoted all that time and effort and money to this guy, do you understand that you are funding the opposition? You are helping the enemy when you support these frauds and charlatans. And what I don't understand, what I find very difficult to understand, is why so many right-wingers are so happy and proud to be supporting these people who want them to be destroyed, who want to ruin their way of life, who want to destroy their nation. And you're proud because you support them. That's wrong. You know, that's insane. You know, and the thing is, I'm not sitting here going, gee, you know, why doesn't all that support that went to Jordan Peterson come to me? I'm not thinking that. I know perfectly well that the stuff that I write is not going to appeal to the people that Jordan Peterson appeals to. But, you know, that right-wing desire for validation from the enemy is a major, major weakness. Stop looking for approval from people that want to destroy you. You know, it's a bizarre sort of political masochism, and it's very self-destructive. You know, you need to, I mean, you know, I find it really frustrating too when people like are so angry about, you know, what Disney did this time. You know, I went and I saw the new Disney movie and it was terrible and they did terrible things. Why are you funding Disney? Disney hates you. Disney hates your children, and Disney wants to poison your children's minds against you and against what you're teaching them. Do whites even have the right to exist if we are so weak and easily misled? Of course. You know, but you don't deserve any sympathy when you lose your nations and you find yourself ruled over by women and children. You know, you abandon your God. First you abandon your God, then you abandon the truth, then you abandon your nation, then you abandon your people. and you're surprised that things aren't going so well for you? I mean, this isn't that difficult. But somebody says, he had that one stand against compelled speech, and that carried him far. What's the big fucking deal about that? I mean, all Jordan Peterson said is nothing that Milo or Mike Cernovich or Stefan Molyneux or me or, dozens of other people said. But somehow Jordan Peterson stands up to a crazy SJW and suddenly, oh, he's so brilliant. He's so brilliant. He's not brilliant. Read his books. He's a fucking lunatic. He dreams about devouring his beautiful cousin and having his grandmother rub her genitals on his face. How many of you know that? I mean, if I came out and wrote that, you would think that I was a complete lunatic, and you wouldn't pay any attention to anything I said. So why would you listen to anything that Peterson says when you know that about him? And if you didn't know it about him, then you need to understand that. Read what people. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. A number of people have said, well, how did you know so quickly? How did you know? Why were you able to identify Peterson the way that he is? It's very simple. I pay attention to intellectual integrity. When I see somebody who I know is intelligent enough to know better, doing and saying things that are clearly false, then I know they're shady. And I know I just have to look into what they've written, and I'm going to find something that shows who they really are. It is very difficult to write a whole book without giving yourself away in some regard. And so, as soon as I read 12 Rules, I realized that this guy was totally incoherent. He was illogical, incoherent, irrational, and so it was very clear to me that nobody understood what the hell he was talking about because he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Let's see here. Some of us are lower IQ than you. Well, actually, technically nearly all of you are, but that's okay. It takes longer to figure things out. Thanks for showing us the truth. I understand that, and I appreciate it. When people are appreciative for that. But when are you going to learn? How many times do you have to see the same thing play out over and over and over again before you go, you know what? Maybe I can't see it yet, but maybe I shouldn't argue. Maybe I should try to understand what this person is talking about. I mean, what really astonished me about Peterson was that something like 80% of the people that actively follow my blog we're just like, oh, Vox has gone off the reservation now. He's got crazy. I mean, Jordan Peterson is a wonderful man doing great things for so many young men. You know, I mean, these are people who had been reading my blog for what? Some of them for 15 years. You've followed me for 15 years, as much as 15 years. You've seen me call things like the Trump presidency from the time of the South Carolina primary. You've seen me call things like the 2008 financial crisis, 2002 gold bottom. I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but if I tell you somebody is a liar, he's a liar. I know. I've already busted him. You may not understand the significance of the evidence, but there will be more. There will be more. There's always more. That's the thing you have to understand, is that the evidence, a single piece of evidence, is like an ant. If you see one ant in the kitchen, what do you know? There's going to be more. When you see one piece of evidence that somebody has a flawed character, a lack of intellectual integrity, or they're just crazy, there will be more. In fairness, though, Peterson seems to be genuinely insane rather than a fraud. I'm of the opinion that it is easier to understand fraudulence than insanity. I could be wrong. I don't think so, actually. Insanity is very obvious when you read it, because they just don't make the proper connections. They don't make, the connections that they make are just not there. They're non-existent. That's when you realize, okay, this person's nuts. I realized that he was nuts when I read Maps of Meaning. It was very clear. With rules of life, or the 12 rules, I just found that more puzzling and stupid. Like, I mean, I have to admit, with the whole thing about the take your meds because of Adam and Eve. I mean, that to be honest, I thought he was just bullshitting. Throwing everything and the kitchen sink in to try to impress people. I mean, that's a technique people use. But I didn't realize how nuts he was until I read Maps of Meaning, and I also read the way that he tries to prove things. And I realized that he was, number one, crazy, and number two, dishonest. Isn't it a fair expectation that everybody is going to say something dumb or do something wrong every once in a while? Yes. I did something dumb tonight on the soccer field. I'm still irritated at myself. I say and do things that are suboptimal on a regular basis. But these are not the same thing as blatantly lying about stuff. If somebody's under tremendous duress, if somebody is being forced to choose between a person they care about and holding to a specific opinion publicly, those don't mean anything. What does it mean? It means that the person values his relationship with this other person more than he values telling a bunch of strangers the truth. Fine. But that's fundamentally different than just this constant dissembling. For me, I knew instantly that he was full of it when I corrected him and someone else corrected him on the whole Ashkenazi Jewish IQ statement that he made. And instead of just admitting that he was wrong or something, he, dissembled and tried to come out some way. I mean, that's actually a pretty good giveaway about someone being fundamentally untrustworthy. If when somebody factually corrects them, they immediately start trying to attack the person who simply presented the facts accurately. That's somebody who doesn't love the truth. That's somebody who is trying to hide the fact that they're being dishonest. Fox, can you define a right? Yes. The right traditionally is God, king, and nation. God, king, country is the way they usually phrase that. So what the right is really about is Christianity and nationalism. It's kind of hard to stand for a king when you don't have one. The American philosophy is no king but Jesus. But the right boils down to the preservation of Western civilization. That means law, that means tradition, that means Christianity, and that means the nations, the European nations. In a global context, all the nations. And nations are born in blood. Nations are not states. It's very ironic that people try to say, "Oh, well, you're a collectivist because you believe in the nation," and yet they're relying on the state to dictate the identity. They're literally statists trying to claim that non-statists are collectivists. It's absurd. Would you debate him? Of course I would debate Peterson. I'd pay to see you debate Peterson and get in the ring with Shapiro. I would happily debate or get in the ring with either of them. In either case, they wouldn't last long. How can Peterson sell out America? He's selling out America by attempting to, or by opposing the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh. Peterson linking Christ to Egyptian mythology, repeating stuff that's been debunked since the 19th century, was telling. He doesn't read a lot outside of his particular interests. That's exactly correct. Actually, I like what Wade Wilson pointed out: God, family, and nation. That is a more succinct, modern definition of the right. I like that. That's good. I will use that going forward. I've been wanting to ask you about this. I keep hearing on the news about how horrible populism, nativism, and nationalism is from commentators. Of course you are, because they're attempting to destroy Western civilization, and those things stand in the way. What do you think they mean by all this, and why? Do you think they're just stupid, or do they know what they're talking about? If you're talking about commentators on the news, yes, they're that stupid. There's a whole... the funny thing is that their concept of nationalism only dates back to the post-Westphalian era. And so the idea that nationalism causes war and conflict is totally ahistorical. It's totally ridiculous to anyone who understands military history. Diversity plus proximity equals war. The United States is going to experience probably one of the most horrific wars in human history because it is the recipient of the greatest movement of peoples in human history. If you look, I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Go to Infogalactic, go to Wikipedia, read up on movement of peoples. And what you will see is that movement of peoples is invariably tied very closely to massive conflict, war, and bloodshed. Is Peterson going back to Canada if Kavanaugh is confirmed? I doubt it, but you'd have to ask him. Jordan Peterson has to go back. That's a good one. I like that. Let's see. Cav is a sneak peek. Crazy War just getting started. Yeah, no question. So, anyhow, that's really all I've got for tonight. I just wanted to point out that, again, Jordan Peterson is full of it. Jordan Peterson is and has always been a man of the left. Jordan Peterson supports the destruction of your nation. Jordan Peterson is a globalist in the George Soros mode. His ideology is actually quite common to George Soros's ideology. And so don't be misled. Don't be misguided. And I will definitely be analyzing Jordan Peterson's 12 points for conservatives and comparing them to the original 10-point canon of the modern conservative movement in the near future. So, anyhow, have a good evening, and I look forward to seeing you at the next stream, and we will see you the next time.